everyone, welcome back to my channel and welcome to a new video in 2023, which is kind of crazy. It's already a new year and I cannot believe that I'm sitting here filming this video because this year last year I set a goal for myself to read 50 books and I almost made that goal, and I read 46 books in 2022 and we're gonna talk about them. I tracked them all on the app of GOODREADS. I would highly recommend this if you're into reading, you want to have a reading goal for the year, or you just want to keep track of all the books you're reading. I feel like it motivates me to read as well. So I'm going to be going through all the books I read in 2022 and talking about how I liked them, my rating, and whether or not I would recommend them to you. I will have my GOODREADS down below if you want to check out my profile. I have 46 books to get through, so this is gonna be a long video. This is what I'm gonna show you guys this real quick. This is like what my collage looks like on GOODREADS of all the books I read. Super cool. I can't believe I read this many. Who would have thought? Okay, the first book I read is The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren, and I gave this a 4 out of 5. It's an enemies to lovers, and I really liked the plot. I remember not being a fan of the male protagonist at the end, but if you like enemies to lovers and you want an easy read, we have The Inheritance Games and The Hawthorne Legacy by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. Loved the first one. The only thing I will say about this series is it is Knives Out, The Summer I Turned Pretty, and Gossip Girl on crack. I feel like it's directed at like a younger audience, but I loved them. The Hating Game by Sally Thorne was my next book. I gave it a 4 out of 5. It was enemies to lovers in the workplace. Again, these books are so easy for me to read. I really liked it. Was not the biggest fan of how they took the movie, but I really liked the book. You know, it was a simple read. We next have a trilogy, a full trilogy I read. We have A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. Then we have the following book, Good Girl, Bad Blood. And then the last book is As Good as Dead. It's basically about a girl in a small town with a murder podcast, and then the whole books really align and deal with different crimes and stuff, and I think it's pretty cool, and the way the characters develop is really interesting throughout the whole series. Next we have They Both Die at the End by Adam Silvera. I gave this book a 3 out of 5 because they both die at the end. Spoiler alert. I wasn't really drawn to it. That's why I gave it such a low rating. That's not that low, but next one we have, oh god, don't get me started on this book. Okay, I need to breathe. Absolutely hate more than anything is Maybe Someday by Colleen Hoover. I understand the Colleen Hoover hatred after reading this book. I don't necessarily hate her. I don't necessarily love her books. I read a lot of her books this year though, but Maybe Someday is probably her worst. This is probably the worst book I've ever read. The tropes in it are terrible. The characters are awful. Next we have Normal People by Sally Rooney. I gave this a 5 out of 5. I love this book. I would highly recommend it. I will say it's for a very particular audience, just like the ambiance of the novel and what takes place in it, and the writing style is very particular, but I loved it and I didn't think I was going to. We next have The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. I loved this book. I wish I read it earlier. I tried reading it so many times and then I finally got into it. It's basically, I'm not even explaining these books. Oops. I remember it was about a time traveler named Addie, and she was a queen. I loved her, and I just feel like it was a really well-written book and I really liked it. I hated this one too. This one is In 5 Years by Rebecca Sorle. I don't know how to say that. I give this one a 3 out of 5 and I would not recommend it. I'm pretty good with like time jumps and like that kind of thing in books, but this one, the protagonist ends up being just a bad person and I just didn't really like that. I want to like the protagonist, and if I don't like the protagonist, then I feel like it just ruins the book for me. I just wasn't a fan of the characters. I next have Today, Tonight, Tomorrow by Rachel Lynn Solomon. I loved this book so much. I think at the time it was my favorite book I have read like so far in the year. Enemies to lovers, and I just love the whole ambiance of the scavenger hunt and then the two like high school top of their class enemies falling in love. I love that trope, and I also loved the whole end of the year, senior year thing. I didn't really get a senior year, so I love novels that have love stories and like at the end of the senior year and they're graduating, because I didn't get any of that. So next we have The Virgin Suicides. I love the movie so much and the film and everything about it. The novel was just very boring for me. I'm sorry. I give it a 2 out of 5, and I think it's beautifully written, but that doesn't mean I liked it, you know? Next we have The Magnolia Palace by Fiona Davis. I got this through Book of the Month, and I loved this book so much. It was giving me, as I wrote down, Great Gatsby, Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, murder mystery, slow burn romance, and time jump. This book had it all. It was super well written. I would highly recommend this book. I think it is the underdog of the year. Next we have Big Little Lies. Big Little Lies, if you don't know, is also a show, and it's really interesting because the show takes place in Monterey, California, but the book is in Australia. Oh my god, we have November 9th by Colleen Hoover. This one was crazy. I wrote for my review, Soul equals crushed. Still feel that way. I think I'd recommend this book just because it kept me very intrigued, and I feel like with her novels like that, you didn't hear that from me. Next we have Anxious People. This one is one of my friend Izzy's favorite book ever, and I think the idea of it's really cool. So it's basically about a bank robbery that never happened. It has to do a lot with mental illness, and I love seeing that in novels because I feel like there is a stigma when it comes to how mental illnesses are portrayed in books, and I have a few more books on this list that I'm going to talk more about that subject, but I think this did a really good job. I gave it a 3.75 out of 5. I wish I read it when I wasn't in a book slump. I think I would have given it a higher rating, or I would have appreciated it more, but at the time I didn't. But now looking back, it's a really nice read. I would recommend it, but I also don't think it's like for everyone. We next have The Summer I Turned Pretty by Jenny Han. I gave this one a 4.5 out of 5 because this book is definitely better than all the other books, and I'll get to those later. We next have Conversations with Friends by Sally Rooney. I gave this one a 4.5 out of 5. I love her material and her writing style. Again, it's very subjective, but I love it so much. And I feel like her books just have to do with very interesting relationships between people and characters you wouldn't normally read about. Next we have Funny You Should Ask by Elisa Sussman. I gave this one a 4 out of 5. This one, like a fan to actor trope, which I love and I'm manifesting for my life, and that's why I recommend it. I think this one was really cute and it was a really easy read. Next we have Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid, aka my favorite book ever. I love the writing style. It's an interview style, and this book was just amazing. The show's coming out so soon and I'm gonna lose my mind, and you're gonna see me for that, so get ready. Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. This book is very controversial. The author is as well. Don't support the author whatsoever, but I gave this book a 4 out of 5 and I personally enjoyed it. Verity, oh my god, Verity by Colleen Hoover. I read this book in 2 hours and this book was nuts. Colleen Hoover knows how to write some very insufferable characters that I can't stand. One True Loves by Taylor Jenkins Reid is my next book. I really like this one. This is an underdog for me out of her books. It's basically about a girl who was married to her high school sweetheart. He was like a jock and she was like a loner, and they get married, move to LA, and then he dies, quote unquote, in a plane crash, and then 5 years later she's in her hometown dating a guy she liked but never like went anywhere, and then her boyfriend from before, or husband, he's like, oh my god girl, I didn't die, who are you dating? And I just like how the plot went, and I feel like Taylor Jenkins Reid writes very realistically sometimes. I mean, some of her books, no, I love all her books. I think all her books, the characters are like very real life-esque. Next we have Book Lovers by Emily Henry. This one I give a 4 out of 5. It took me forever to read because I had COVID while I was reading it. This is definitely her redemption for me. I cannot read People We Meet on Vacation. I still haven't gotten through it, but Book Lovers I did enjoy and I would recommend. It's like a little small town summer vibe and I liked it. Okay, this one is another controversial book opinion of mine. This is My Year of Rest and Relaxation, and I think this is way more subjective in liking it compared to Sally Rooney. Narrator and like the protagonist, we don't even find out who the protagonist is. I remember we don't even know the protagonist's name. It was not for me. As you can tell, I really like a good entertaining book. Next we have A Complicated Love Story Set in Space. This one was really cool. I think this one is underrated for sure. It's about a group of friends, I think like 3 people. They don't know each other, but they're stuck in space, and the way the plot unravels is really cool and it's a really easy read. Oh my god, this next book, we have The Pleasure Seller. Now you're probably thinking, I've never heard of this book. That's right, because this book has 1.5 stars on Goodreads and has been read by 3 people. 3 people. I basically, let me give you context. I found this book at a like free library near the beach, and I thought the cover, this is the cover, was really cool. It was giving me like 70s psychedelic drugs. I thought it would be a really cool read. The book is literally about a guy in Orange County, like a teenager, who gets into crime, and he's like really high on drugs and is doing so many drugs throughout his teenage years. And then from like hitchhiking to all this stuff, like being dead broke, and 20 pages before the book ends, he finds God and all his problems are gone. I didn't realize this was a religious book. I probably wouldn't have picked it up. It was a weird story. Oh my god, my favorite book this year, I'm gonna announce it now. This was my favorite book, and it is Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. This book needs to be my real life, and again with the end of the year senior like neighbors to lovers trope, where is my West? Because I'm literally Liz. I am quite literally that protagonist. Ugly Love by Colleen Hoover is my next book. This one for me, I said it was my new It Ends With Us. If you're not familiar with that book, it has a very high ranking in my head because it's crazy good. The past and the present and like going back and forth like she did in It Ends With Us is really good in this book. Next we have The Final Gambit. This one is the final book in the Inheritance games, as I talked about like 15 minutes ago. This one I gave a 5 out of 5. I think it ended the series on a really good note. This one I really liked how it ended. Next we have South and West, a notebook from Joan Didion. I love Joan Didion. I could go into a whole thing, but I love her writing style. I found my love for her in my junior year English class, and this book I gave a 3.5 out of 5. It was stories from one of her road trips that she went on, and I just love her journalism. I love her writing. If you like journalism and Joan Didion, this one's a good one. Next we have The Guest List by Lucy Foley. I gave this one a 3.5 out of 5. I loved the way it ended. It was a really sharp plot twist, and I liked the multiple perspectives, different chapters. The characters weren't that like strong where I was like attached to them. See You Yesterday by Rachel Lynn Solomon. This one was really cool because the protagonists are stuck in a time loop and they fall in love, and it's a really long book. I couldn't put this one down. It was really good and I really recommend it. Next we have It Starts With Us, which is the sequel to It Ends With Us. I gave this one a 5 out of 5. I read it on a plane ride coming back from Boston, which was kind of cool. If you know, you know. I thought it was a really solid, like, here's how I word it. It's basically like the season 2 of a show where like, did it need a season 2? No, but kind of. But did it ruin season 1's like amazingness? No. I don't think it ruined the first book, but I don't think it was that necessary. It was kind of a money grab, but it worked for me and I enjoyed it. Next we have Love and Other Words by Christina Lauren, first author of the year. I liked the characters. They were giving Atlas and Lily from It Ends With Us. Next we have Circe. I don't know if that's how you say it. This one was written by the same author as The Song of Achilles, which is a Greek mythology book that I love and adore with all my heart. Wasn't a fan of it. I gave it a 2.5 out of 5 because I think the writing, and obviously this author goes through so much research to make these well-written books. Not my thing. My Policeman by Bethan Roberts is my next book, and I read this so I could watch the movie with Harry Styles, but I haven't watched that one yet. I couldn't put it down and I was really hooked from the start. The next book I read this year is Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and I gave this one a 4.5 out of 5. It was super captivating and I loved everything about it, and I would highly recommend it. It's basically about, we have the second and third book in the Summer I Turned Pretty trilogy. I gave them both a 3 out of 5 because they just ruined Belly as a character for me, and I don't know why she turned into the character she did, but she did. She got her redemption in the end of the last book, but it just ruined it for me, and I'm so sad about how the books went. I have some thoughts. We have The X Talk by Rachel Lynn Solomon, which the plot is really cool. It's basically about 2 enemies in the workplace who work at a radio station, and they have to start a podcast together pretending like they're exes, but they actually never dated. I think all of the protagonists in all the Rachel Lynn Solomon books I've read this year are literally the same person. They literally have all the same personality traits, and I get that it's very consistent throughout her books, but I just want something new. Like every character, every setting is Seattle, and all the protagonists, like all the female ones, are all the same. I thought it was a cute read, and I liked the development between the two main characters. Turtles All the Way Down by John Green. This one, I loved the mention of OCD and the discussion of mental health. It's definitely something I struggle with, so reading it in a book was really cool for me. And I also just really liked the main character, and I haven't read a book like this in a while, and I would recommend it. It was good. After I Do by Taylor Jenkins Reid, I gave this one a 3.5 out of 5. I thought this one, out of all the books I've read this year, I thought this book felt so realistic and the characters like existed in real life. It's basically about a married couple. They were college sweethearts that took a year off marriage. I could like totally see this being based on someone's real life. All right, next we have, oh my god, this is one of my favorite books again. This one is Every Last Secret by A.R. Torre, I think. Oh my god. This book is literally Big Little Lies and You on crack. It is so good. I would highly recommend it. It's basically like a murder mystery, but like rich couple, but like I need to be Catherine. Like I need to be her. And y'all need to pick this book up. This is one of my favorite books this year. It was so good. The way the plot went, I was like, oh my god. And I would highly recommend it. It was crazy, crazy good. Those are all the books I read. Oh my god. My mouth, I haven't talked that much in so long, but those are all my books that I read in 2022. I hope you enjoyed. I literally talked for 30 minutes. The goal for this new year is 55 books, which is kind of crazy, but I've already read one. It's January 3rd. I've read one book so far. I'm reading this one right now, Sally Rooney, as you know. But follow me on Goodreads. I'm gonna make my books and like the description and my reviews a lot more detailed. So I'll see you guys next time. Bye! Bye!